So just recently, somebody leaked over 50 secret documents from different intelligence agencies like the CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and the Pentagon confirm that these documents are real online. And they have very important and sensitive information in them about things happening in countries like Russia, Ukraine, China, Turkey, South Korea, and Israel. And this is a big deal. So watch this entire video, share it with a friend, especially if you hold any crypto. The documents that were just uncovered recently unveiled some critical details about the fighting that's taking place in Ukraine, and it shows that Ukraine is running out of air defense systems, which makes them weaker against Russia. And if these documents fall into the wrong hands, which they already have, they could be used by foreign governments or terrorist organizations to gain a strategic advantage over the United States and its allies. Now, whether these were leaked on purpose or not remains to be seen, but the documents also show that Russia has lost more people than Ukraine in the fight, and there is fighting inside of Russia too, with different groups not agreeing with each other. Some of the documents talk about a Russian company called the Wagner Group, which wants to work with the government of Haiti, and this raises concerns about Russia's involvement in other countries, and the potential impact on a global level through stability and security is being questioned right now, especially with the war that we're in with China. There's three types of wars that take place, currency wars, trade wars, and then kinetic wars, which is what it's leading to. And many of the papers are slideshows that were used to teach important people at the Pentagon. Some papers have important information about China's weapons and what they are doing, what they are preparing for. And the Pentagon has confirmed that some of the papers are real. The Pentagon has confirmed that some of the papers are real. However, there are some altered documents online, so sifting through what's real and what's fake is a challenge. But what we do know is that we are in World War III right now with the trade war, currency war, and impending kinetic war, with China escalating things with their talks about them invading Taiwan.
U.S. Air Force Brigadier General Robert Spalding. He served at the Pentagon and at the National Security Council and is now the CEO of the tech security firm Semper.
Yellen said we're decoupling without saying we're decoupling. The things that are going on in the background, we still have the tariffs. We have the CHIPS Act. In March, wind terminals, which have economic data on China for bond traders, went down, and it's no response from China about why. And then just yesterday, the Bureau of Industry and Security fined Seagate $300 million for selling hard drives to Huawei. So this decoupling is happening, and I think what Yellen is trying to do is calm people down. But I think the thing that we have to think about is if China invades Taiwan, which it's looking like they're getting prepared to do, we're going to see an economic cut. So it's probably better that we start planning for it now rather than having it imposed on us like what happened with Russia's invasion of Ukraine. China has what's called civil military fusion, which means that all of their commercial businesses are required to share any technology they develop with the military. So that's essentially what they're getting after. But I think more importantly, Wall Street invests other people's money. And if this money is going to end up being trapped by some kind of decoupling that's forced upon us, then getting ahead of it not only helps, in terms of our military and national security, but it also helps those investors whose money might be trapped there. You can see the writing on the wall. No matter how much, we don't want this decoupling to happen. It wasn't actually initiated by the United States. It started all the way back when Liu He and Ambassador Lighthizer negotiated the trade agreement, and then Xi Jinping tore it up. So they have been saying since then, we want to decouple. The Belt and Road Initiative, all of the efforts they've been taking, including calling bankers in last April to discuss how sanctions were levied on Russia so they can prepare for those. The Chinese have been preparing for this decoupling, and we have been fighting it while at the same time issuing, trade rules and BIS rules and now investment rules. So it's coming. It's just we don't want to acknowledge it, I think. Just as an American, the things that I think about are what are the things that we depend on China for? And then if China cuts those things off, like antibiotics, like rare earth metals, how's that, like the microelectronic manufacturing, how's that going to impact our economy? And so I think we're not preparing for, some eventuality by doing things now to get our economy prepared for the impact of something that happened that's more drastic than what we're seeing, kind of this piecemeal effort that's going on now.
So, as the war with China escalates, this would cause massive disruptions in the supply chain of certain goods and services that are valuable in the United States. And this is because China is obviously a major supplier of many important products, including electronics, rare earth metals and minerals, pharmaceuticals, among many others. And if a full-blown kinetic war were to break out physically, which it's leading to, it could lead to disruptions in supply chains worse than we've seen in history, worse than 2020, as well as trade restrictions and tariffs, which could impact the ability and the cost of products skyrocketing through things like precious metals, right? Electronic devices, smartphones, laptops, electric vehicles, wind turbines, you name it. So you need to be prepared for this because China is currently the world's largest producer of rare earth metals, and a disruption in the supply chain of metals would have a significant impact on the cost of production in certain industries and products. And the impact on this, guys, is far reaching. So imagine how bad this would be for the transportation industry, since, minerals like platinum and palladium, which is used in the catalytic converters of cars and trucks to reduce harmful emissions, is completely cut off. Now, this large source of platinum in South Africa, which produces around 80% of the world's supply, and you look at Russia, is the second largest producer, accounting for approximately 11% of global production. The largest source of palladium is also Russia, which produces around 40% of the world's supply, and South Africa is the second largest producer, accounting for approximately 38% of global production. So this has been going on for a while, because in 2003, China passed the United States to become the world's largest copper consumer, and by the following year consumed 46% more than the United States. And in 2006, China announced plans to set up strategic mineral reserves to stockpile uranium, copper, aluminum, iron ore, and other minerals, investing heavily into African mines. And I was in Africa, and the Chinese would just literally show up with machine guns and take the mines without any legal documents, because they would just bribe the police over there, because it's basically the wild, wild west over in Africa. So China is increasing their interest over in Africa, and they are stockpiling all of this to strategically position themselves to have a competitive advantage. Additionally, other metals such as gold, silver, and copper are also used in various parts of gas-powered vehicles too. If you think this is just only with electric vehicles, guess again, because including wiring, connectors, and contacts. However, the impact on this used in gas vehicles is much less than the amount used in electric devices and renewable energy technologies. So you don't have anything to worry about if you don't drive any electric vehicles, do you? Well, good old Joe Biden, the best president we've ever had, he announced new private and public sector investments for electric vehicles, with a goal of having 67% of all new vehicle sales be electric by 2033. And on August 16th, 2022, Biden signed into law the Inflation Reduction Act, which aims to reduce inflation while addressing the issues of climate change by investing $370 billion into clean energy solutions, which, it seems like a good idea, right? Doesn't it? Yeah, but it's going to be a disaster, and here's why. Joe Biden's electric vehicle regulations are creating an absolute disaster across the economy right now, making the U.S. more dependent on China, even more than they already are. And this is a big deal for inflation. Biden's administration announced new emission standards for vehicles with the goal of reducing carbon emissions by 10 billion tons over 3 decades. And the proposed regulation would require about 67% of new car sales to be electric by 2032. And in 2022, just last year, less than 6% of cars produced in the USA were electric vehicles. China right now currently holds 78% of the world's cell manufacturing capacity for EV batteries. So China has also been investing massively in African mines that are rich in minerals that are essential for battery production. So they're controlling the supply of materials, and they're controlling the supply of production. And this creates conflicting regulations in the United States, because last year's Inflation Reduction Act requires that EVs don't have components from any foreign entity of concern, which for sure includes China. So in addition to this, China is also a major producer of pharmaceuticals and active pharmaceutical ingredients, which are used to make medicine. So a disruption in the supply of these products would impact the price of medicine in the United States and make it much more expensive for people who need that. You look at, Chinese medicine and then Western medicine. Well, Western medicine is usually the last resort that you shift to when, you can't fix the problems through a healthy diet. But preventative measures are the best cure. And overall, the war with China is shaping up to be bad for those who do not pay attention, for those who do not prepare, because a kinetic war, a physical war breaking out with the talks of space warfare, nukes, will create massive volatility in the financial sector, specifically the stock market, real estate, and crypto. On top of that, for crypto, now the U.S. Department of Justice is investigating Binance. This has been going on for some time now, and the cryptocurrency exchange, which is the largest in the world, for possibly letting Russian customers use the exchange despite U.S. sanctions against Russia. Now, this investigation is the latest in a series of actions against Binance and other exchanges, including investigations by the IRS and the Securities and Exchange Commission. Binance denies any wrongdoings and says it complies with all U.S. and international financial sanctions. Now, the company claims to have a large compliance team and has recently stated that it has found a way to keep North Koreans off its exchange. Additionally, Israel has reportedly seized some of Binance accounts allegedly tied to terrorist groups, but it's unclear, how Israel did this without Binance's cooperation. So the SEC and the Department of Justice has been going after crypto massively recently, especially with the largest exchange in the United States, Coinbase, with the Wells notice they received from the SEC. And during quarter one of this year, on their earnings call, the CEO of Coinbase, Brian Armstrong, confirmed that the company is still 100% committed to the U.S. market. So he's saying that so they don't scare away their U.S. investors, obviously, despite regulatory uncertainty in the United States. And he continued to state that Coinbase would continue its global expansion plans as the U.S. works towards creating a new and clear rule book for crypto. And they're taking their sweet time for doing so. And so he expressed his optimism about America eventually getting it right. However, they're losing this blockchain race to other countries, citing strong bipartisan support for Congress to create clear legislation for cryptocurrencies. And this is what Brad Garlinghouse has been striving for as well, too, with Ripple's lawsuit versus the SEC that is coming to a closure any day now.
I'm here to thank you, and I appreciate that you're thanking me, but I'm here to thank you for all that you have done to support this effort. Truly, it does take an army, and this army has been incredible in support. We're going to win this thing.
And the CEO of Coinbase stressed the importance of fixing regulatory issues. And Coinbase International recently launched, which is an exchange over in Bermuda, and it's a derivatives platform for non-U.S. institutional clients to compete with Binance, since they are dominating right now with the majority of the market share for trade volume. So the main concerns right now for the crypto market are a war with China escalating to a kinetic war and a physical war, which would have massive consequences on trade restrictions and, causing a massive spike in price of electronics, consumer goods and services, electric vehicles, even gas-powered vehicles. It would cause massive volatility in the stock and the crypto market in the short term. And also, when we talk about a lack of regulation in the United States, not giving clarity for crypto investors, it's going to make it harder for retail investors to strike it rich and get wealthy if we're not going to the beaches of the moon anytime soon. And then also, Congress potentially delaying the increase of the debt ceiling, which would cause a default of the U.S. of its obligations if they don't do that, meaning that the U.S. government would not be able to pay back its creditors and pay off its debts and all of its bills, which could lead to a complete loss of confidence in the U.S. dollar, even more than it already is as the world's reserve currency.
As you know, I've asked Congress to raise or suspend the debt limit. Since 1789, the United States has always paid its bills on time, and it must continue to do so. In my assessment and those of economists across the board, a default on our debt would trigger an economic and financial catastrophe. I urge all members of Congress to come together to address the debt limit without conditions and without waiting until the last minute.
And this could cause a widespread sell-off of U.S. Treasury bonds, leading to a spike in interest rates and inflation, triggering a global financial crisis, much bigger than what we see right now. This would be a catastrophe, guys. It would also lead to a downgrade of the U.S. credit rating, making it more expensive for the government to borrow money in the future and even have to pay back the interest on the debt that they're borrowing. So in short, a default by the U.S. government on its debt would be a catastrophic event with far-reaching consequences that I will be talking about in tomorrow's episode. So make sure you give this video a like, you subscribe for that. Now, I know this video seems to be pretty, doom and gloom and scary type of news. However, this is the reality of what's going on in the world right now. And if you know how to prepare, you can position yourself, you can position your family to become financially free before it's too late.